Hi, Gloria Lybecker here with Healing You. Today I woke up thinking about how many of us started out on our path in this life really ill-equipped, completely unaware of the potential problems that we were going to run into in life, and doing the best we could with what we had, and then experiencing that it was not enough. So we might get stuck in a looping pattern of just rehashing the past with a voice that's just recriminating us about what we should have done different, what we could have done different, and we didn't. And so we heap these mounds of evidence against ourselves. And then we go about hanging our head in shame. And the other opposite could be maybe we just get really resentful and angry about how unfair life has been and how impossible it is to ever get ahead or experience things differently, or to believe that it's possible to have life show up different. And many of us end up living our lives from the energies of anger, guilt, shame, or depression, or oscillating somewhere between those. And those states can feel really impotent. I know personally, I started out in my young adult life as a very young wife and mother at the age of 18. I remember my mom saying something about it's like you're gonna move in and have a Barbie doll dream house. Well, the only Barbie doll dream house I knew wasn't that fabulous. Showing my age here. And yet, white picket fences and a happily ever after marriage and well-mannered children. It's not what I ended up with either. There are so many things that we are not aware of when we start out. And hopefully along the way, we find others that are willing to walk alongside of us to support our learning. I remember moving far away from home. I lived in Washington, and I think I was 21 when we moved down to Texas. And that was a lot different place than Washington. In Washington, I grew up in the country, and it was a whole different culture. When we moved down to Texas, it was in the heart of San Antonio, and there was a Dirty Sally's right across the street from the apartment, and it was scary to me. I'm not saying that San Antonio is just full of places like that, but there are places like that. And when you are young and you have not been exposed to many things in life, you don't know, or I didn't know, how to be with it. And then when you're far away from what you are familiar with, and you're doing your best to find your way, in my experience, I was trusting of others. And in that innocence, naivety, then I would get caught up in whatever others were doing, which wasn't really life-serving for a young wife and mother. And I'd learned some hard knocks along the way. And the regrets that I hold and have held, and the shame that has done its best to take me out, was mostly around how I showed up as a young mother. Because I love my kids. I love children, and I always have. And when we find ourselves in a situation where we've dropped our needs, or we have ignored the needs of our child, that can really be debilitating to find our way back to forgive ourselves, to slow time down and to understand what might have been going on for us in our youth, and to find ways to let grace start to come in, some warmth of understanding and acknowledgement around your own developmental curves. So from time to time, a memory will pop up and I'm like, oh, I'll just kind of cringe. And what I'm practicing doing is slowing down to be with that inner experience, to bring in my adult compassionate self now, my grandmother self, and acknowledging my youth, my inexperience, and my lack of education around the importance of developing secure attachment, or even finding ways to have it for myself. And noticing what it's like in my body when that happens. Because for years, what kept me stuck was the disillusionments of my life experiences and beating myself up with so many harsh admonishments. You know, you're such a loser. I can't believe you did that. There is absolutely no forgiveness for you. How could anyone ever be so dumb? You are worthless. And I huddled in the darkness of my own inner prison, and I was suffering in silence. Others of us, however, we may very well rage through our life, daring anyone to ever try to take advantage of us ever again, suffering nonetheless. So, what could our new perception be? Because I know in my life that I have discovered, it may have taken me years, but I still discovered it. I've discovered that it's possible to live my life empowered and wide awake. And I can still hold on to my impossible dreams and allow those dreams to actually emerge naturally as they unfold in life. And I hold them deep in my heart. Impossible dreams are rich with empowerment and freedom when they're grounded in truth. That's a really key thing. And that truth is anchored in your sacred values. And so along my life journey, I was blessed to have some mentors that came alongside of me that really listened to me. And they heard my heart when I was sitting in all of my perceptions of disillusionment. And they helped me to learn how to unpack what I was telling myself, to really know what's important to me. What do I value? And so when we can learn how to listen deeply to our inner chatter and sit patiently with our pain, with kindness and warmth, then it's possible to receive that understanding and grace from our own warm inner light, because we all have our own inner light within us. Maybe it just needs a little nurturance from another who can see your light to help it grow. And when we can be empowered to be able to sit with that inner experience of pain without judgment and acknowledge how it feels to be having this human experience, then we can find our way to be able to name what are those unmet needs that we did experience in our younger life, and to have the accompaniment that we need in order to mourn the loss that we did suffer. And that allows that energy to be processed as we actually receive the learning of our life's lesson. And so I made a few notes about what kind of skills are needed to be able to develop, to move forward like this. And so first it's to notice our own inner chatter, to begin to learn what lies underneath that chatter. If we can slow it down and really listen deeply. And then we also need to develop the skill to trust that life is for us rather than against us. And again, accompaniment will really support that learning. And then we need to develop the skill to expand our window of welcome for the emotions that we find difficult and uncomfortable to be with. And develop a language to name what we do value and honor in this life. So are you ready to live your life empowered? And are you ready to be wide awake? Well, then I invite you to begin by paying attention to what you tell yourself. And also start to recognize what are the emotions that you find uncomfortable. And maybe then even name them out loud and notice what happens in your inner experience when you do that. Because this will begin to grow your window of welcome. Because life can only appear to be against you when you're being someone who you are not. Someone who you were not created to be. And that's an important truth to know, because life is for you. Thanks for being on this journey with me today. Healing you.